or it could be a change in the supply rate. We are still out there making observations and piecing together kind of causes and effects and trying to understand the relationship of the things that we've seen over the last 12 hours. The eruption from Mauna Loa continues at this time. However, there has been a significant change in activity. As of this morning, we've all been focused on the proximity of the advancing lava flows on the saddle towards the Daniel Ka'inoi highway. As of this morning, our normal measurements, satellite based in this case, was 1.76 miles from the highway. Again, 1.76 miles. However, this is no longer going to be a major concern in the mornings at the present time because the lava flows, the lava that has been feeding these flows approaching the highway, the lava supply has been cut off as of this morning. Our HVO field crews have been out in the morning since sunup making observations, and they've reported that while the eruption continues out of Fissure 3, the currently active fissure, the supply from Fissure 3 down to the flow front has been cut off. So Fissure 3 continues to erupt, but it's no longer feeding the major channel going towards the highway. Lava is coming out, what appears to be a reduced production rate, and it's coming around on the channel. You can actually see it with our YouTube live feed. That live feed has been going in and out, unfortunately, but you can see it now. Whereas yesterday you saw the vent and the fountaining and a really well-established and rapidly moving river of lava. You don't see that this morning. You'll see flows coming out. And right now those flows have not organized into a major channel or anything like that. So at this time, the flows are kind of just flowing out from Fissure 3, covering up previously erupted lavas. And there's no major organized new lava flow at this time. And we'll see what happens over the next couple of days. Something in passing, the height of the fountains coming out of Fissure 3 was much higher last night than it has been typically. This was noticed by people all around the island, people out there, even from my house in Volcano. It was kind of like, whoa, those fountains look a little taller tonight, last night. And indeed they were. We don't have a good estimate on how they were, but they were several hundreds of feet at least. So a noticeable change in the fountain heights last night. And we were having discussions as we were making our observations and doing the analysis. What could be causing this? Could it be an increase in the volume of material coming out, or it could be a constriction of the vent? So imagine you've got your garden hose and you put your thumb over the end of the garden hose and you're squeezing it out, and that'll make the water come out. So it could be a constriction in Fissure 3 last night that caused the fountains, or it could be a change in the supply rate. We are still out there making observations and piecing together kind of causes and effects and trying to understand the relationship of the things that we've seen over the last 12 hours. So we will continue to be making observations from the field, getting a better picture of what's happening and what might come next. And so to do that, we have our Mauna Loa expert, Frank Truesdale. I'm delighted to have him give us an update from the field and the latest developments and give some analysis of that. And before going over to Frank, I'll just reemphasize again, despite this change in activity, there is no immediate threat to island communities or infrastructure at this time.
The only other thing I'll add to David's update is that the lavas are above the observatory road, and so there are no actively fed flows below the observatory road. People will see residual activity along the fronts as the channels drain. They're no longer being fed, and there'll be some residual activity and creep of the flows. Because the channels have been cut off, or the distal parts of the flow have been cut off from magma, one of the questions that people are wondering is that if we have additional flow in the channel, can that then reactivate the flow front and push the lava closer to the highway? And because we're dealing with flows, it's very unlikely that in a supply of molten material from the top will push the flow fronts at the distal margins ahead. Essentially, we have to renew the entire flow field with supply directly from Fissure 3 to go all the way back down the entire distance to become a threat. So right now, we don't expect that the new lava coming out on the surface to be able to replenish the supply to the flows that are closest to Daniel K. Inouye Highway. So we're at this point in time don't have any clear indicators to say that what is the substantial change in the vent activity. So one possible scenario for why the fountains are higher is, as David explained earlier, you could have had a constriction in where the lava is coming out of the ground, and that constriction, if the pressure is the same but the aperture is smaller, you can drive the fountains higher into the air. One other thought is, from the historical record, is that early on in Mauna Loa lava flows, you have fissure vents and you have the production of a'a, where the effusion rates are high. And 3 different historical eruptions went from a'a early in the eruption and transitioned to pahoehoe. And the pahoehoe is moderate to low effusion rates. And so we may be in that transition. So one of the things that we're doing is collecting molten samples. And the samples then give us inference as to whether or not we're also transitioning from a high effusion rate to a moderate to low effusion rate.